So I'm Herb and I'm an alcoholic, and welcome to our maiden voyage, at least for the Zoom call for the Step Guide community. This call is being recorded, and I don't want to assume anything, and I do also want to test out my technology. So I'm going to put up the Serenity Prayer, even though probably everybody knows it. And invite you to pray that prayer that is a commitment to consciousness, actually. What can I influence? What can't I influence? I really need wisdom because I can't control anything inside or outside of me. And I have a responsibility to influence things inside and outside of me. It's very difficult for me to discern that, and I need help. Please join me. You're all on mute. You're welcome to pray out loud to yourself or not at all, but at least commit to a wisdom attitude. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So the call is for actual step guides, people that are helping people with the steps out of the book, not just steps from whatever other source. Everything is wonderful. I'm glad you're trying to help people, but this call and the subject of this call and the conversation about this subject is focused only on the big book and the work that we do there. So if you're actually helping people, or you think you want to help people, so it doesn't mean that you're actually engaged in helping anybody yet. The ideal, of course, is that sponsors are capable of taking people through the steps. But as I indicated with my own personal history, that never happened. My sponsor never took me through the steps. But I had a wonderful relationship as a sounding board and accountability partner with that sponsor. And I had the good fortune of connecting to people who, in fact, were mechanics with the big book and the step process. And I don't mean to diminish their spiritual value or their psychological sophistication. I just mean that they were really skilled. And that's why I use the term mechanic. So this call's purpose, as I've at least outlined it, and it will develop over time in more precision, I'm sure, is to share your experience of being a companion, ask questions about what you've encountered with people that you've been able to ask and answer, or that you have not been able to address and you want some support in, or you want some confirmation or clarification about the issue. Guidance with regard to issues that are broader than it, and Jeanette said it wonderfully, broader than just the step work itself, but if in fact there are sponsor issues. I don't mean the particular drama of a sponsor situation, but perhaps the essence of it. How do you handle, what resources do you use? What is your general recommendation? And then we learn skills from each other. We learn vocabulary from each other. Jeanette made it very clear that this is open to everybody, not just alcoholics, not just drug addicts, not just food addicts, not just Al-Anon and relationship addicts. I have adopted the professional jargon of substance addiction, alcohol, drugs, and food, and process addiction, everything else that doesn't have any tangible, measurable substance. So it could be gambling or pornography or sex or relationships or anger or fear or work or exercise or religion. Whatever is the compulsiveness of the day that is interfering with the quality of somebody's life. It does assume that if you're a step guide, a bona fide step guide helping people, that in fact you've had the personal experience of finishing the first 9 steps, or at least being deeply involved in finishing step 9. Obviously, sometimes it takes weeks, months, sometimes years, hopefully not too many years, to finish your 9th step. I don't want to address any specific comments like that in any detail right now. It would hijack us and derail us. But we can handle that in a question or concern at some point in one of our conversations. What do I mean by that? Anybody that I guide through the steps, either individually or on the workshop, is encouraged to finish their step 9 within a year. I don't have any deadlines. I don't have any timeframes, but I have guidelines. And you can finish your 9th step. People that are dead, people that you can't see, people that you shouldn't see. There are, at least from my personal experience, creative and spiritual ways of approaching finishing your 9th step. Staying open to finishing it in a different way at a later time, if in fact the universe opens up in that particular way. Again, this is about step guide. Sponsorship is a secondary, but a very, very complementary, like 2 sides of one coin. So we'll focus on the step guiding part, but we'll encourage and incorporate comments concerning our experience and share that on sponsorship. When, as Jeanette said, that there's a reason to have that discussion. It's what Bill Wilson predicted prophetically in the first edition to the Big Book. In the preface to that first edition, he said in that first paragraph, in that preface to the first edition, the very last line on the first paragraph, our way of living may have its advantages for all. And he wasn't meaning all alcoholics, and he wasn't meaning, I believe, all addicts. He was meaning all human beings. And of course, the suffering from addiction is what brings us to our knees, literally, and gives us the motivation to at least approach the steps, hopefully the motivation to complete the steps. And anybody as a human being that doesn't have addiction has to have that kind of severe suffering to be willing to submit to this soul surgery, as the predecessor group to Alcoholics Anonymous calls it, the Oxford group calls it soul surgery. We invite the divine surgeon to enter into our lives and our hearts and our souls to literally, spiritually, surgically remove the cancers in us, those obstacles to the light, the darkness in us that metastasizes over time and chokes the physical, let alone the emotional and spiritual life out of us. Now, that's a lot, and I'm glad that we're able to bring it now to a place where we can begin to interact with you.
I have a question. I have a woman who, from my home group, has 8 years sobriety, went out for 3 years, now has wet brain, broken bones, in a facility recovering, and she wants me to sponsor her. My question to you is, where do I start? She's cognitive. She understands what the doctor's doing. I mean, she sounds like she knows what's going on, but where do I start with it?
It doesn't sound like she has a wet brain then, if she's that cognitive and conscious, but it doesn't make any difference. The answer to your question is meet her where she's at.
Okay.
Help her in the way she's asking for help as you interpret it, not as she interprets it. She may not know that she doesn't know what she needs, but you might intuit that what she does need is this and that and the other things. But meet her where she's at, number one. And then my favorite operating principle is ask them to do what they will do and can do. I wouldn't give her a whole bunch of material. I wouldn't give her the way of life document and the assignments. No, you're almost going to have to spoon feed her.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a similar, you pressed a button that just reminded me, a situation where there was a grown man, 50 years old, who wanted to get sober and joined AA, but he couldn't read or write. and he wasn't willing to learn how to read or write. And a man sat with him and read him the big book, one line at a time. When they came to a suggestion, he made the suggestion, and the man would dictate to him what was the writing that was necessary. And this man took 2 years to write out this man's whole approach to the steps, including his fourth step. And so I'm saying that you meet them where they are, and you do what you can, what you help them do what they can do and will do. If you want to help.
I'm willing to help, but I want her to work the steps.
Well, what does that mean? No, wait. I'm hearing a little edge in your voice.
That's why I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I'm hearing a little edge. You want her to do it your way.
I'm here to help.
Wait. Here's the question. Do you want to help her?
I want to help her.
Then figure out how to help her.
By listening to her?
Oh, now you're not her therapist.
Okay.
No, and you're not her parent, and you're not her disciplinarian. If she's asked you to be a sponsor, you could certainly do that, but figure out what she can do to do the steps. And it might be a verbal connection to an experience with the step one without any writing, but ask her the questions about her experience with addiction.
Okay.
Unable to stop, unable to stay stopped. Those kind of questions that you've heard me talk about. Take her a little bit into the unmanageability part, and you could even read to her pages 60 to 62 to see slowly if in fact she's relating to that unmanageability. And then ask her, what's her experience with each piece of that, so that she verbalizes it to you, not for your approval, but just so that you can help her maybe understand and or maybe even better have an experience with it, and then move her into step two in some way that she's able to hear and respond to, but mostly have an experience with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and be patient.
Do you think it's too soon to start while she's in the facility recovering?
No.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, start when she's willing to start. Now, it may be that you need to talk to the professionals around her to get an idea as to what would be effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Gentle, patience.
I'm not good at that.
Well, you will be by the time you're through.
That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm doing it.
Oh, no, that's right. And approach it with that set aside attitude. Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. Good.
This question is sort of a combination step guide sponsor question, because I have a sponsee who is currently doing a 12-step workshop, and she's just finishing her step 4, and our step 5 is booked. I've done 2 step 5s myself. This is the first time I'm taking a step 5. She told me this morning on our sponsor call that she's been lying to me about her food. We're in FA, and she's been significantly breaking for the last 2 months, and she's been lying to me about something with her food for about a year. And so I was a bit taken aback, and I feel like I want to go ahead and take her step 5 on Wednesday. I'm really not sure what to do after that, and I'm really questioning the relationship at this point, and the broken trust that I'm feeling, whether that's my stuff or not. And I've been working with her for 3 years, and I'm not really sure at this point if it's helpful for her for me to continue as her sponsor, and whether we've kind of run our course. And I would really love some input from you.
A very, very wonderful question. And I don't want to make it simple or simplistic. Um, the question that I asked, do you want to help? Clearly you do. This woman has now revealed at least some of her secrets to you. Maybe that will help heal your trust issues, but your trust issues are your issues. Don't make them her issues. She's coming to you for help. She's obviously having the beginnings of a spiritual awakening because she's told on herself, very embarrassingly, that she's been lying to you. And that's wonderful sign, quite frankly. The whole point of working the steps is to get a connection with the power. You don't get a connection with the power in the big book until you finish step 9. It says in the step 10, 84, 85, pages 84, 85, that we're placed in a position of neutrality. Hear that? We are placed, a gift. We are placed in a position of neutrality after we finish step 9. So you want to help her get through to the best of her ability, and you don't get to judge that, quite frankly, to finish the steps. So yes, I'm totally endorsing your attitude about wanting to hear her 5th step. And she may not be totally forthcoming, and she may not have seen the kind of things that she needs to see and that you can see, but she doesn't see. And that's just what is. My experience was, and I opened up, hopefully giving a sense of the progression of my own mental, emotional, and spiritual development and evolution, in that I thought out in AA for the first 4 years, and then I thought out a little bit with the steps in 1988, and then a little bit more in 1991, and then a little bit more in 1996. And it was about a 10-year process of going through the steps and progressively becoming more aware and more honest and more conscious. And so my recommendation, without any qualification, is yes, help her, and help her with her 5th step, certainly, and help her continue with her work, and allow her to have her experience of progressive honesty, and know that at some point she may go through the steps again later on or not. And if she does, she'll have a new experience or not. And that's none of your business. Your business is the supporting her while she's where she's at right now. Is that?
I'm wondering that whether I've got some boundary issues going on as well with her. And so,
when people start using boundary issues in the book and psychological vocabulary, my yellow flag goes up of caution. What is it that you mean by your boundary issues?
She has a traumatic past, as do I.
So what?
And so I wonder if because I can relate to what she's dealing with and going through and trying to find healing from, that my relationship with her has gone beyond that of sponsor-sponsee.
What does that mean?
That means that I don't know if I cross a line around. I'm obviously not her therapist, but sometimes I wonder with what she tells me and what we talk about and how I respond, whether I'm responding more out of that type of relationship because I've been through so much of it myself.
Yeah, part of the magic of having an experience is that we can connect and identify with other people's experience, which is what brings healing. And in fact, many people call us the wounded healer.
Yeah.
It's through our wounds, as one of the songs says, it's through our wounds that the light shines, both into us through our wounds and then through our healed wounds to other people. It's a wonderful metaphor, poetic. But that's a conversation for a sponsor, for you to talk to your sponsor about. And if you have any professional issues that are beyond sponsor relationship, talk to your therapist or a therapist about what you need to do to take care of yourself, because you're right to be concerned if in fact there's a personal issue that may interfere with both your serenity and with the effectiveness of your counsel to her. So, yep.
Okay.
There's no formula here, but it's an excellent question for you to at least begin talking to your sponsor about, maybe even talking to this person about if there's something that needs to be talked about and clarified, and or get some professional help to advise you as to sort of the appropriateness of conduct. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it
That's
does.
a lot, but
Yes, it does. Thank
yeah,
you very much.
yeah. It's people are complicated. Yeah, each of us is very complicated, and but there are resources. That's the best part of all of this. There are resources.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
I introduced your workshop to one of my sponsees who I had been working with before I even joined your workshop. And she has loved it and done all the work. She's done the fourth step, she's done all the columns, and now she's ready to do her fifth step. But I have not done the same level of work with your worksheets. I've done multiple fourth steps, fifth steps, taken multiple fifth steps, but not with your workshop worksheets. And I'm feeling very vulnerable here because I haven't done it myself with your methodology.
I'm hearing, however, you're in the Thursday, Friday workshop, and we have in fact completed the fourth step. What percentage have you done of the work especially in the resentment area? What percentage of your work have you done?
I have probably done I've done 3 or 4 third columns on big important things.
Yeah.
And I think 3 fourth columns.
Yeah. It's a question that you might want to ask your own sponsor, but
Okay.
if you were candid with this person, they want to give you their fifth step, why don't you listen to it? Why not?
Okay.
And if in fact you feel or she feels that she needs to give it again to somebody else with a little more experience than you have, then she can do that. But you've built a working relationship with her. She sounds like she's passionate and done the work and has a lot of confidence in you. And there's no better way to learn about it than to do it.
Okay.
We're on the process, right? Yeah,
That's
but be
right.
honest about it. Yeah.
Right.
Don't pretend to be anything other than you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that. Okay.
Of course, yeah, exactly. It's so actually relaxing to say, this is where I'm at. If you want to do this, it's great. And let's come to a conclusion at the end of it as to what's next.
Okay, that sounds
Very
perfect.
cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Question I have is, I was abstinent, my own experiences. I was abstinent when I started working the steps. I got abstinent in food right away. And I don't expect everybody to, and I don't expect everybody to eat the way I eat. I have no idea how anybody should eat. But I wonder if somebody who is abstinent, then isn't abstinent, then is, and slips, if I should continue with them with the steps, and most importantly, doing a fourth step.
Yeah, no, I know there's lots of conversations and there's lots of protocols and there's lots of opinions. I'm going to share mine. I am not in a eating disorder program, nor do I have a addiction in that area, but I have lots of exposure, and I've had this conversation many times, right? And it's not important whether you agree with me or not. You asked my knowledge and my experience, and quite frankly, Yellow flags up, my opinion.
Right.
The big book is very clear. We do not get free of our addiction until we finish the 9th step. If you don't have power over your addiction, how do you get power? Oh, that would mean an effective relationship with power. When is that guaranteed in the big book? Pages 84 and 85, after you finish the 9th step. We are placed in a position of neutrality. It's indicated in the 3rd step that you might have an experience. It's indicated progressively in the 5th step that you might have an experience, but it's confirmed and guaranteed at the end of the 9th step. So if I'm working with somebody who relapses in step 2 or step 4 or step 7, or even in step 9, we'll have a conversation, but I do not send them back to step 1. I do not fire them. I continue working with them so that they can finish step 9, begin a practice of steps 10, 11, and 12, and pray for mercy.
I appreciate that, because there is so much of in the food programs of it not being that way.
I understand, and I do understand the reasons, because of the concern of the ability of people to process accurately and stuff. And it's kind of like, I work with alcoholics who relapse. I don't work the day they relapse. But if the next day they have been able to not have a drink, I will work with them that day.
Well, that's what I was going to ask it regarding an alcoholic. So if he or she relapses, and so that day that they're drunk, you won't.
Or even have had a drink.
Okay, right. Have had a drink, right?
Yeah.
That day you won't, because it alters the whole thing.
That is correct.
So the next day, if they haven't, you'll continue where you left off.
I do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because that really makes it for fun and for free. It makes it, I'm not in charge of anything.
Bam. I'm there to support your journey,
Yeah.
but I will not work any harder than you do. That was the thing that first took me through the steps. He said, I will show up and I will work hard with you. I will not chase you, and I will not work harder than you.
Along those lines, what I found with people many times with sponsees who do relapse, but they still want to keep calling and working, I work with them. I continue to, because who am I to say? I can't determine when somebody's going to get abstinent or not.
That's correct.
It's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. But more times than not, eventually they stop calling. It might take a while, and then they just stop.
I never fire anybody. They fire themselves. Right. Now, there are credible people who I highly regard in AA who have said, Herb, you may be interfering if you're not the person that is helping them. You may be interfering with their recovery because you're not able to help them by demonstration. And if you terminated the relationship, they would go on to somebody else. And my attitude is, if God sends them, I don't send them away.
Right.
It's a simple attitude. And mostly I have what your experience is. They go away on their own. Either they find somebody who can help them, or they die, or whatever.
Or they have to come back later or something. Yeah.
And I've had that too.
Right. No, yeah. That feels right. That feels good. Yeah. Thank you.
How can I help? That's my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think I was just dovetailing on the last conversation. You said they go away on their own. And the other thing a lot of us compulsive eaters deal with in program is that people lie about their abstinence. And, so if I work with them, how do I know, right?
Oh, you don't.
And it's eventually, I think you're right, they fall away, or it just builds to the point, I'm doing my job, and it's up to them. It doesn't threaten my recovery because they're struggling with the truth. So I really appreciate your thoughts about whether to continue working with someone
Right.
who's using. I think that's a big debate in our field about
Yes.
whether we can work with non-abstinent people prior to the 9th step.
Yes. No, I understand. I understand the controversy. I think I've laid it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you truly want to help, then help. But if you have concerns, talk to your sponsor about that and take direction from your sponsor. But also, obviously, pray about it, meditate about it, so that you're having a balanced approach to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I have 3 brand new people, and there's only 4 of us. And I love what you said. As a guide's job was, that's what I heard. Just go over the homework, see if they're keeping up with the homework. And we kind of developed a very nice group. And what I'm trying to say, I am more compassionate and toward my sponsee, the one that's struggling with the food. And the main thing, we finally kind of had the break. The switch, the light went right up. Is she was lying all the time, and I say, I believe anything you say. It's not about me. It's about you.
That's great.
And okay, I'm not gonna fire you because you're lying.
Right.
You're just struggling.
Yeah.
And I think for her being in the workshop at the same time as I am, and being her buddy, it really helped us. Yeah. And she's been abstinent for about 4 weeks, and she is singing a different song. Yeah. She's a different person.
Yeah, I'm really very happy to have you share that. That's the attitude that I would encourage people to have, is how can I help you? I'm going to believe anything you say, but know that whatever you say, if it's a lie, it will come back like a boomerang and it will slice you to ribbons.
Well, we use the switch, the light switch. If you're lying, you're going down. If you're enlightened, if you're doing you're going up, you're going to the light. So, but thank you for your service.
Thanks.
I just had a question about some of the topic we're discussing, that is in AA or other programs where there's actual substances that affect consciousness. If people are not completely sober when I've been taking them through the work and they've been going through it, but then we're about to begin the 4th step and I realize, like has been shared about the eating programs, but they're doing drugs or they've been drinking, and I have the sense, oh my God, you guys have been checked out mentally this whole time. So I've heard and I've listened to everything that's been said, but in the programs that deal with substances in particular, my question is, I don't have belief in their credibility that they've actually done the steps, and I sense I should bring them back from the beginning, and they're confused.
Are you supposed to have the experience, or are they supposed to have the experience?
They are.
Are you judging their experience?
Yeah, because I think they need to.
Wait, are they ready to do their 4th step?
No.
How do you know? Do they want to?
Well, that one stopped at that point.
I'll ask my question, answer my question. Do they want to do their 4th step?
They came up with a lot of excuses as to how they were not able to go forward at the time, and they stopped.
Well, the person stopped. They didn't want to go forward then. What's your question?
At the time, I felt I worked very hard with the.
Wait. You're asking I think it's a practical question, but you're putting it into theoretical terms, and you're trying to be right.
I'm angry that I wasted
answering my question. No, you're not being honest with me. You're not answering my question. Have they finished their 3rd step by a mechanical process?
Yes.
And are they ready to do or willing to do their 4th step by taking a direction?
They stated they were, but then all of a sudden a lot of excuses came up and they fell off the radar.
Wait. The answer to the question is, they say they are. Do you give them assignment?
Yes.
Do they do the assignment?
No.
Do they call you?
They dropped off. This one person dropped off.
Wait. Answer
No,
my question. Do they call you?
no, they
Then
stopped
why
after
are we
that.
talking about it?
I regret spending the time with a person up to the third step, and I realize that's selfish, but I feel like, damn.
You don't get to make that judgment. You get to show
Okay.
up, and they get to show up, and they do the best they can, and some of them fall by the wayside. Over half, you know that. And it's right at the first step. If they call you and they say, I haven't done any work, then you just say, call me when you have, and you hang up.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Herb. I guess I'm just too attached to having them run the ball and complete the play.
And
But
no,
thank
you're
you.
attached to your judgment.
Okay.
It's very mechanical. It's actually kind of cold. If they don't call you, don't be concerned. If they do call you, give them an assignment. If they don't do the assignment, don't talk to them.
Okay.
It's really straightforward. Now, I'm being black and white just to make the point with you.
Clear, but that's actually very
I'm
helpful.
never black and white, you know that, but I can be quite black and white with you, can't I?
Yeah, but I appreciate it and I value it and I thank you for it. Seriously, yeah.
And I in a study group, and one of the people informed us that when we came around to the fifth step, that she was choosing to do her fifth step with her husband.
Okay.
And I initially said, well, I mean, my understanding was you get to pick who you do your fifth step with.
Right.
But then when I started thinking about it, you know, probably from a position of judgment, it seemed to me to be more important that she have someone who was more objective and you know, somebody who was outside.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how really to.
Why don't you tell her that? Just tell her that, but then it's what she does is really none of your business.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I agree with you, but it's a brave thing to do depending on the circumstances. And it may be the kind of marriage that they have, that they communicate that way. But don't get in the middle of that. But I agree with your comment. If the person isn't in a 12-step program, and or even if they are and they haven't done the work this way, great, go do that. But you might, I would say to the person, you might want to consider doing it with somebody who has had some experience, because it will give you a better experience. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, great. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
When is it right or correct to drop a sponsee?
Never.
Even if they miss their phone calls?
Wait. You asked me a question. I gave you an answer.
Yes.
Never.
Okay.
From my standpoint. Now, you could talk to your sponsor, and maybe your fellowship has some protocols that have come out of experience. I'm not getting involved in that. I'm saying with me, never.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My next question is, how much should a sponsor accommodate a sponsee in terms of time?
What does that mean?
Excuse me?
What does that mean?
I like to receive my phone calls at a particular time.
That's your sponsor preference, is the way you want to do your sponsorship. And then you tell them how you want to operate, and they'll either cooperate with you or they won't.
Okay. And that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You
You get to determine how you're going to set up your relationship. Just make sure they're coming from the standpoint of, I really want to help. At the same time, I'm going to protect myself and my time. All right. So I'm not going to be rigid about it, but I am going to be very clear about it. And you either get sponsored the way I want to sponsor you, or you find somebody else.
Okay. Yeah. I accommodated time, and then the person didn't call me at the time that I accommodated, and then I ended up getting pissed off.
Well, you have a problem. Do a third
Yeah.
and fourth column.
Yeah, thank you. I thought about that. Yeah. Thanks, Herbs. Thanks so
And
much. Appreciate it.
Whenever we're disturbed, there's something wrong with us, says the 12 and 12 in step 10, right?
I think what I heard you say is that it doesn't necessarily matter to be in a step guide position if you are in the same fellowship as the person you are guiding through the steps. Was that accurate?
I'm not sure what you just asked me, but let me just try to interpret. As a sponsor, I recommend that you sponsor people in your own fellowship. As a step guide, it doesn't matter because addiction is irrelevant in the step process. It's really about the process of applying the instructions from the big book. So it doesn't matter where you're at in a particular addiction or not. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, that was what I was asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My question is some tips, a pep talk on staying gently pressed against it. Gentle, how gentle though? I think I kind of know some answers probably, but I just thought maybe you had some extra ones.
If somebody's working the steps, they need a plan to finish the steps. That's all.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a plan.
Yeah.
They're not bogged down. They're not stuck. They don't have a plan. If they don't have a plan, then of course they are muddled to have a plan. And that means like a blueprint, like specifics. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, people may not finish their fourth and fifth step before the workshop ends. I hope they have a plan to finish it before the workshop ends. But if they don't, then have a plan to finish it after the workshop ends so that you can, in fact, finish the not only fourth and fifth step, but complete the ninth step and have a plan to do that. Yeah, a target date, no deadlines. We have enough real stress in our life. We don't need artificial stress. So just be specific, have an accountability partner, and move forward. It's don't do artificial anything. Try to be authentic with your plan and with the work that you do.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I just needed that extra pep talk. Thank you.
No, wonderful. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of the call, is for me to share my experience, you guys to share your experience. And as we go forward, there'll be much more crosstalk amongst us because you guys have wonderful experiences. Even today, I've even learned some things from you about your own experiences in dealing with people. Yeah. We're a wily lot.
I had a question about helping someone like shape their step 9.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about my own experience when I went through the steps, and there were certain things from my step 4 that I felt like I had definitely wronged people. But it turned out my sponsor was capable of telling me that I didn't do any harm in certain situations. And so I feel like that must exist for other people. And I'm questioning my ability to like discern whether or not there was damage or not to help someone shape their 9th step, because obviously we don't want to make an amends when it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's an important function of experience, is where you're developing your 8th step actually in preparation for your 9th step and getting very clear as to, and that was the key question that my step guide, my very first step guide, asked me constantly at every card that I had. He had me do 3x5 cards. He said, what's the harm? Because I had guilt and I had shame and I had regret, but I didn't have any real harm by any objective standards. And his question, he never told me whether I harmed or not. He never told me what to do. He always asked questions to allow me to come to a grips with what's the truth and what's not the truth, what's what's going to be real, what's not going to be real in terms of harm done, as well as the way that I would approach it if there was harm done to, in fact, and you use the image of balancing the scales of justice.
Okay. So you're saying through just scanning back through the column 3 and column 4s, even though there's certain ones that obviously, I just remember how.
No, I'm not saying anything about column 3 and column 4. I am talking about step 8, coming to grips with the truth and not your delusion or feelings about the truth, as a sounding board with a sponsee to help them. I never tell them whether they've harmed somebody. I never tell them what to do. I ask them questions about the harm so that they can come to their own conviction. I ask them questions about the process of repairing the damage so that they can come to their own conclusions. I share my experience as to what I've done in coming to grips with both the objectivity of the harm done as well as the reparation of the harm done. But I never tell them what to do. I ask them to pray about it once they've evaluated it, and to always use me as a sounding board for their thinking on both parts, the harm done as well as the reparation that is anticipated.
Okay, yeah, it's just a little intimidating because it's my first opportunity working with someone this far through the steps.
And that's
I wanted to do.
That's where you work with a sponsor, and you can help share, help learn from your sponsor's experience.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay.
And there's no substitute for personal experience, because until then it's all kind of theory and words, until you actually have some experience of sorting it out with an individual like yours. You had to sort it out.
So this may be kind of a simple question, but for purposes of alignment, just so we're all using the same word or understanding how you use the word sponsor.
Yes.
You shared your experience that, your sponsor was somebody different than your step guide.
Correct.
And my experience is somewhere along the lines of that's all a sponsor is a step guide. So what I'm trying to understand from your perspective, because I want to understand you as you use the term, what is a sponsor if not a step guide? Like what?
Well, I think ideally, and the normal expectation would be for a sponsor to take the person through the steps. I think ideally that's exactly what it means. My experience is not that. My experience was that my sponsor was a person initially who helped me navigate AA. Go to a meeting every day, call me every day. Get a big book, read the big book, work the steps, he said, but he didn't say anything after that. And then he was a sounding board for me to bounce off my thoughts and feelings and behavior in terms of my relationship and my work and my finances. And not that he was giving me quote advice, but he was a companion walking me into a life of sobriety, and I didn't have any tools. And so that was what I consider to be a sponsor. And so that was my experience with it. He didn't help me with the steps. He didn't know that much about the big book, and he didn't know that he didn't know. And even after I got some information about it, he was interested a little bit, but he thought I was a bit of a whack job in getting way too serious about all this stuff in terms of my big book focus and the precision of my instructions to other people. And I mean, he endorsed it and he thought I was having fun with it and helping people, but it wasn't contagious when it came to him.
So in that respect of walking through recovery with somebody as a companion, we also have to balance that against, the concept that you mentioned earlier of not being a therapist, right? Being a counselor. So if a sponsor is not going to be a step guide, then do you think the activities between that sponsor and the sponsee should be confined to just life through the lens of recovery?
Well, see, you're already talking about rules and regulations and expectations and control, and I don't have any of that. I just say it was helpful for me to have a companion and a sounding board. He began to teach me about being honest because he said to me, I want you to call me every day and tell me what you're thinking and feeling and how you're behaving. And I want you to be transparent. I said, what does that mean, transparent? He said, I want your insides and outsides to match. I knew none of that. And I still didn't know when he asked me that, but I did say yes. And over time, I began to be more parent, more honest and more transparent. So he was like literally helping me become a better human being by being a sounding board for me of accountability and kind of teaching me that. Go to a meeting 10 minutes early, stay out 10 minutes late, and when you're there, be of service. So he was teaching me about AA actually, and then a little bit about his life experiences so that I could learn some of this stuff as I was thawing out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Okay, so I'm step guide, and one of the people in the group, we was not doing. We're in the fourth step. We're in the Sunday, and finishing up the fourth step, going into the fifth step, and I encouraged him to have a plan. He said what the plan was and everything else, and then he never keeps any plan. Any suggestions?
Well, yes, it's hard to do. And that is, if they're working steps with you, they want to have a conversation about everything except the steps. And what I do is I listen for a minute or two. If they're working steps, I listen for a minute or two to whatever's going on. And then I ask them, where are they at in the step assignment? And once I ask the question, the conversation gets very short. They somehow don't want to continue the conversation. And that's the whole point from my standpoint. I don't want to continue the conversation unless you're taking direction and taking action. I'm not there to have a discussion about your relationship, or in contrast to what I just talked about. I'm not in that moment. I'm not their sponsor in the sense of anything other than their step guide, helping them with the steps. And if that's what they wanted from me, and that's the nature of our relationship, then if they're not doing the steps, there's no point in talking. And I literally have hung up on people after I've convinced myself that it's not going any further and all they want to do is continue having conversation about conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I try not to be rude, but as you know, sometimes I slip off the rails. It's all meant from the heart.
Yeah.
I just have very little tolerance with people's manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I have I'm a step guide, and I have a buddy. I guess that's what I call her. What do you call the people that you're helping?
Well, that's why we changed it from buddy, because it was confusing.
Yeah.
Is the buddy the sponsee or is the buddy the sponsor? So now I call it step guide and the person being guided, right?
Okay, person being guided. Okay.
Yeah.
So she is doing incredible leaps and bounds in this step study, and but she has a tendency to go into story, which I know you know, and so we're setting up a fifth. She's going to do her fifth with me, and I got a really good idea now because of questions I've asked you in the past, and also from your latest book had a great outline on how to do a fifth. And so, but I'd like to do it in one sitting, like you have suggested. And I guess I'm looking for trouble maybe before it's happening, but is there anything I can
No,
do
you're
if she's
preparing yourself. You're preparing yourself. Go ahead.
yeah. So if there's anything I can do to sort of put the brakes on if it does look like it's going to go into a multi-day thing.
Oh,
So
first, you make up your own mind as to what you're willing to do, but I help them shape their fourth step so that it will only take, by my estimate, no more than 8 hours. So that I set up in advance with them what they're going to do with regard to the resentment inventory.
So I guess that leads right to the question, do you have them read their full column 3 and 4, or do you just do the self-esteem on the column 3 and then jump over to the column 4?
That's a great question. In the beginning, I have them read column 3, column 4 in its entirety, all column 3, then all column 4. Down the road, when they've had a time to articulate 6 maybe or so of those, there may be a conversation that they start or that I might initiate. Is it still necessary for you? Are you having any new experience with reading all of column 3? Or would you like to just read, I give them the option, column 3, self-esteem and fear, pride and fear, and then go over to column 4, like I do on the workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm using quantifying in a very arbitrary way, just as indicative. It's not, I'm not setting any rules about this, but the major thing is before we ever meet to do the 5th step is we've had a conversation. How many sets of column 3, column 4 do you have?
Yeah.
And if I try to keep it between 20 and 30 sets.
Okay.
All right. So that they have, they're reading sets of maybe 3 on their father, 3 on their mother, 3 on their spouse or partners, and then a set on different people, institutions, bosses, and or whatever. In any type of, I tell them to pick the more substantive ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they're not reading to me everything that they wrote. I'm being very clear with them. If they want to read everything you wrote, whatever isn't read in our time, then you can read it with somebody else. I'm just not going to sit there for more than 8 hours.
Yeah. Well, I like that. What about the other thing is, if we think we're heading towards, getting it done in one sitting, but say a meal breaks us up in the middle, like we need to break for lunch.
I always take time for lunch. If it's going to be 8 hours, we'll take breaks. We'll take snack breaks or smoke breaks or bathroom breaks. Certainly a major break of at least a half an hour for lunch.
Okay.
Where we're not trying to read during lunch.
Okay. That was my question. As food addicts, we're not supposed to be reading while we're eating, right?
No. I agree with that. Well, I'm not even a food addict, but it's a time to kind of breathe and relax and make connection. Yeah.
Okay. That's exactly what I needed to hear then. Thank you so much, Herb.
Yeah, and the 8 hours is merely a target. Again, I have sat, even though I planned for 8, I have sat for 10. But I've really learned to be pretty careful so that it doesn't go beyond 8.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's productive for me or for them. We all get really just wrung out and tired.
Yeah.
And
I have to agree.
The point is not quantity. The point is quality.
Yeah.
Do they have an experience of the deflation of the ego at depth? And they will have, reading it out loud consecutively for the very first time ever for them. They've been writing it for weeks or months or years, and now they're reading it out loud consecutively for the very first time. It will provide an experience, usually. Yeah.
And I also find both she and I are morning people. So we've planned it now to do it in the morning when we're both fresh, to start at least when we're fresh, because we were talking about starting late in the afternoon. And I thought both of us decided, no, we're kind of flagging then.
I don't know if I've ever had an exception. I start at 9 in the morning. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Herb, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'm talking about my sponsor, which is not a spiritual guide to walk me through this. Anyway, we have become friends. I mean, we do things together. We have great times.
I know, I understand friends. So what's your question?
Okay, my question is, I need to get honest with her, and I'm more afraid of losing her sponsorship. I mean, her friendship than her sponsorship.
Well, why don't you have that discussion that you think your friendship might interfere with your sponsorship, and you are going to choose a new sponsor because you want to really maintain a viable friendship with her? Why don't you just talk to her like that?
Yeah, okay, yeah, she'll accept that.
Well, you're not firing her. You're
oh, hell no.
You're treasuring your relationship as a friend, and you're saying, I would like to have a sponsor that, for whatever reason, you make up your words, right?
Yeah, but as a friend, I mean, we've really helped. She said at one time I was her therapist.
That's friendship can be quite therapeutic. That's wonderful. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And so I'm going to invite you all to the prayer of St. Francis. It's my prayer that I call the transformation prayer. If we were all on mute, I think, yes. If we could pray this in unison together. It's a prayer that captures the process. It captures the promises. Listen to those promises. Listen to the turning. We become channels of grace. We become channels of light, both in terms of our own selves becoming lanterns, but then we light the path for others so that they can walk the path, as we very much reinforced you did today, to have their own experience. Please join me in this prayer. Lord, make me a channel of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I look forward to reconnecting at the very latest in a month, and with some of you on a weekly and multiple day basis. Thank you, everybody.